We're just back here at Texcotzingo and we're here with Marco Vigato. It's a sunnier day, still windy, but we're checking out a few extra things we didn't get to see on the first day. Marco's going to point these out to us, some interesting rock carvings and some other pieces. It's said that this was like the kind of sacred gardens of the Aztec rulers. It was where they would develop agriculture, they would test different plants. There's many terraces around here like we find in Peru. They would have ceremonies up here as well. And so and it's almost like they were like hanging gardens of Babylon, but of ancient Mexico. And it was very sophisticated, very beautifully done. It was created by artists, artisans, amazing architects. And, you know, there was some strong evidence of very high technology here, which is obviously passed down from the Olmecs to the Toltec to the Aztec, the Mayans and so on, and it eventually made its way here. And so this is a very, very interesting, very important site. An author and explorer called W. Bullock visited here in the early 1800s. And we've already seen here, and I'll show you some images here and some footage, and he describes some stones 4 to 5 feet long and 2 to 3 feet thick. Basaltic stone, so made of basalt from the local volcano. And this, he said, the whole place was covered in these huge stones. So it was like a megalithic site before the Aztecs then rebuilt on it. And he was here, and like even since then, since 1824 when his book came out, most of these stones are gone, but there's a few scattered around here. But really it's the rock carvings into the solid rock, which is very unique. It's something that Marco points out. And you can see his blog post here. I'll put it in the link below, so you can sort of click on it and go and see what he's written about this, because he was the first. He brought this to my attention.
All right, so we are here again in Texcotzingo at the so-called baths of the Netzahualcoyotl, the poet king. As you can see, the entire cliff face here, we're just underneath the so-called monolithic bathtub, or the bath of the king up there, has been all carved into these like really beautiful steps. You can see here like whole cliff face was completely cut and carved here, and you see like monolithic steps which are just like a continuation of that ramp that we saw on top. This is going down here, so you can almost follow the steps. So like the first ramp down there, then you would have had like steps are now like completely destroyed going down there, and you see like more steps going here. And if you turn around, then you see like a continuation of the same monolithic stairway here, which is like going down. It's all carved in the rock. And again, if you look at the type of rock, it's almost like a kind of porphyry stone. So you see like it has lots of quartz inclusions in it. It's a really hard stone, so it's nothing like compared to the relatively soft sandstone or limestone that you typically find at Mesoamerican sites. It's probably even harder than the andesite that we saw at Teotihuacan, for instance. It's probably one of the hardest stones that was worked, and you can still tell like just the precision of the cut itself. All of these, again, it's attributed to the post-classic period, so around like 1400 to 1500 AD. But the reality is, if you just consider the hardness of this stone, the level of erosion that you see here on these rocks, it's very clear that these structures are probably thousands of years old. And just look at how in some cases that we saw, for instance, before in these aqueducts, they were certainly covered at some point. You can tell here that all these monolithic stairways have literally eroded away. So one wonders how many thousands of years of erosion it would take to destroy and to cause this level of damage. Then definitely the site was reused, and we're going to see that down there in the so-called pass of Netzahualcoyotl. The difference is a very striking contrast between this monolithic, megalithic construction and the sort of post-classic construction which is typical of the Aztec period. The entire mountain is pyramid shape. You probably saw that. It was really designed to be an image of the cosmic mountain. So that's why you had all these gardens here, like flowing water and waterfalls, because it was considered as a sort of the terrestrial equivalent of the paradise of Tlaloc, the god of rain. So that's why you have all this symbolic association with Tlaloc. There are even a number of petroglyphs on top. One with the carving of the face of Tlaloc, which tells you pretty clear that this was a sacred site dedicated to Tlaloc, at least in post-classic times. there is a story about that, about these, like, let's say, like ancient giants. For instance, the pyramid of Cholula is usually attributed to them. The chief temple of Tlaloc was located nearby. It was actually on a mountain. We cannot see it from here, but we'll see it from the top. It's called Mount Tlaloc. It's a 4,300 meters mountain, so over 12,000 feet high. And it's considered the highest pyramid, well, in terms of altitude, the highest pyramid in the world. It's the Temple of Tlaloc. It's a massive pyramid. I visited it 2 years ago. There's a huge ceremonial ramp going up on top. The view is incredible from the top. You are 4,300 meters elevation. And that's the same mountain, by the way. It's called Mount Tlaloc, by the way, where the huge Colossus of Coatlinchan comes from. So you know that gigantic statue is in front of the Museum of Anthropology. It comes from that mountain. There is even speculation that if that's an effigy of Tlaloc or of the wife of Tlaloc, right, the Chalchihuitle, that statue was probably meant for the shrine on top of the mountain. Even though, of course, like it's hard to imagine how they would have carried a 160-ton statue on top of a mountain, but that's the idea. Like these are sort of like monolithic type of architecture you see here with these monolithic stairways that just continue all from the top. And like the rather crude like construction here, which is clearly like post-classic Aztec period. See, like it's built of small stones cemented together. It's a really sharp contrast, even if you see like these walls here. It's just like a wall of rubble, literally. So all these structures like collapsed over time. This was probably like a palace, a sort of like reception hall that belonged to this palace of the king Netzahualcoyotl. But then again, like most likely all these monolithic architecture you see here is much, much older than the palace itself. This was very clearly already a sacred site long before the time of Netzahualcoyotl. There are a number of interesting things, like for instance, you see like that element down there, it's sort of like monolithic column, monolithic pillar, which is quite interesting because again, like the column itself, like monolithic columns, were pretty much absent from Aztec architecture. You don't see them in any Aztec sites, but for instance, the Olmecs use a lot of these sort of columns. So again, that might point to the original epoch of the construction of these structures.
So we're here at Texcotzingo, and Marco's just brought me down to the lower level below the sacred bowl El Rey, and we found this. He's shown me this. Now this is really interesting because it doesn't look Aztec. He's pointed out that it's not an Aztec style. It could be Olmec. I mean, it sounds crazy, but if you actually look closely at this, we'll have a good look in a minute. It's got images like symbols and style of like an Olmec head, although much smaller. So let's get in and have a closer look at this. So this is a bit of an anomaly here. You've actually got this statue, and it looks like it's wearing some kind of hat. It looks like a head wearing some kind of hat. You can see the top of the hat here, and you can see there's actually symbols on it. And then you can clearly see demarcation between the hat and the lower part. And the face could have been on this side. It's been very badly damaged, but I'll keep filming. You can almost see facial features on it, and then you can see the hat going around the side, or the helmet. That is very, very interesting. Now the carvings, that's the back of it here, the carvings here are in the shade, so you can't see them very well, but I'll get some photos as well, and you can actually see what looks like, almost like Olmec kind of symbology here on this particular stone. So we just come around to another part of the site here, lower level. Marco's just up there getting photos of what looks like more carvings coming out of solid rock. So let's just get up there. You can see this has all been cut smooth just here. This is just like something you find at Ollantaytambo or Sacsayhuaman in ancient Peru. Absolutely amazing. More carvings here as we walk along the edge of this cliff. Perfectly sliced piece of solid rock.
As you can see here, this was clearly a very important shrine in the complex. That this whole room, probably measures like some 5 meters across on each side, was entirely carved into the rock. You can see like all the walls here that were carved in the rock. There was this raised platform here that apparently had a throne here, so it was a stone seat. You can still see parts of that. They're carved out of a rock here, so it was a sort of like, could have been like ceremonial seat, a shrine for the gods, even like used by the king himself. Sort of like have this view of the mountains like Mount Tlaloc in the background. Unfortunately, it was like heavily destroyed by treasure seekers, but you can still tell where he was with this stone platform and the remains here. And again, like you see the same sort of stone cut here. Here, of course, like it's much more eroded, but this room was entirely carved out of the bedrock. And then as you follow this path here, you can see like this sort of wall in the middle is in fact an aqueduct. This continues to the opposite side with a number of pools on different levels. The aqueduct itself, however, ran for over 10 kilometers to Mount Tlaloc, which is the big mountain. You can really see it very clearly here. You will see it much better from the top. It's a huge extinct volcano, very close to also like the Texcotzingo and the Popocatépetl, where there are like natural springs and water sources. It was considered the home of Tlaloc. So also from a symbolic point of view, they were literally bringing this water from the home of Tlaloc, from the mountain of Tlaloc, directly here to irrigate these gardens. So quite an impressive feat. And there are like, of course, this is probably like the most easily accessible section of the aqueduct, but there are like other parts of this aqueduct where you can actually see like the water conduit that would take the water here. So incredible engineering feat. And here, something interesting to look at. You can see like these huge blocks of stone here, again, like badly defaced right now, but it looks sort of like monoliths, almost as if they were like broken stelas of some sort. You can see like these two big stones there. This one is very interesting because this is a column of basalt. Again, like something you see at Olmec sites, for instance, they use a lot. If you remember, like the Olmec tomb of La Venta, it's all built of these blocks of basalt. Quite interesting, there are columnar basalt quarries here, just like around these hills. So that's probably where they took these basalt columns. It's like prismatic basalt formations. Might have had some sort of like symbolic function. Could have been like a stela or a pillar that was raised here somehow. You can see that even it's not only the walls here that were like carved in the bedrock, but even the floor. You see that? Like all these, it's like the natural bedrock that was leveled as well. There you can see also around the bottom of the wall. You can see like here it's quite incredible. Like if you see where it's not like that eroded, like how they will make like these right angles also with the floor. So they must have had some like pretty fine tools to do that. Definitely not like the sort of like heavy stone hammers that you see in some reconstruction. It's like very fine work. It's almost like chisel work.
It's an amazing site. Now we have to question, is it really Aztec or was it from an earlier culture? And, you know, the fact is the Aztecs were megalithic masters. They were like, it's almost like they were bringing back the technology of the Olmecs and even pushing it to another level. The Mayans didn't work so much in large stones. They used smaller stones and more of them. But the Aztecs seemed to bring back this tradition of megalithic construction, which we'll see examples of right here at this site.
As you can see, like the stairs down that, and what's interesting is that tub down there, you can almost like make it out. It's like circular, that depression in the rock, badly eroded, badly defaced again. It's kind of interesting to find it in association with the temple. There is actually a speculation that these little like pools were actually used as astronomical mirrors, meaning that they were filled with water. You saw many of those in Peru as well, to like reflect the stars, which would make sense if this place had also like an astronomical significance.
Just over in the distance there is what Marco's just pointed out to me is Mount Tlaloc. That's where there's a shrine, possibly a pyramid up there dedicated to Tlaloc, and it's thought that's where the stone of the great statue came from that's now on display outside the National Museum in Mexico City.
It's just like steps, so there's another one on these. So again, like it's very similar, like this one also like has some very interesting ones. It looks like it's very similar to actually what you see. Like you see like these steps going up to a platform, would have been like a temple probably on top. I guess it's very modern, but it always like struck me. You see like this drilled hole in the stone. Yeah. And also on top, if you go on top, you see like more of these like little holes in the stone.
So it's in view of Texcotzingo. We're up at the top, at the peak now. We're looking at some of the strange carvings on some of the rocks, but that's the mountain. And it's thought, Marco thinks, that's where the statue may have ended up. How would they get a 168-ton statue to the top of that mountain? Not only is there amazing rock cut carvings, kind of steps, pools and aqueducts and other such things, there were actually a number of tunnels carved through the mountain. And these apparently went quite deep. Most of them have been blocked up now, you can't really get to them, it's all overgrown. But according to Bullock, who wrote in the early 1800s, he claimed they were actually potentially full of treasures, and they were actually like using these not just for sacred purposes, but potentially to harness and manipulate the earth energies of this particular hill. More carved steps in the arena of the gods, apparently. And there's some more. We came here last time, but the light was terrible, so now we've got much better light. You can actually, yes, that's what they are. These are the feet of the statues here. Look at this. So you can actually see them now. Yes, that is amazing. Not much left of the actual statue itself, or this one, but this would have been a giant carving. So this piece here that I did actually see this last time, yeah. But it's good to see it in decent light with Marco here. This could have been part of the body, actually, as Marco just pointed out, of these statues where the feet are just there.
So yeah, as you can see, we're here at this shrine. It's called like the gods, Los Dioses, and you can see like these two carved statues. They're carved directly out of the bedrock. They now like have been badly defaced or badly eroded, but you can see like the feet. This one is quite interesting because as you see like the feet, it looks like it's wearing sandals. You can see it particularly on the right hand side here. And there are these other figures. So of course we do not know what they represented. It could be Tlaloc and the Chalchutlika, like the companion, the wife of Tlaloc, or it could be like a representation, like traditionally they're called like the king and queen, of course. So since this place was where King Netzahualcoyotl of Texcoco had its palace, it's also possible, at least like tradition has it, it was a portrait of the king of Netzahualcoyotl and his queen. And this big piece of stone here is actually pretty a part of the sculpture that was like detached from it. You can just see like it's a very hard stone. Again, it's kind of porphyry stone, as you can see from the quartz inclusions, and the carving is extraordinarily fine. You can probably just like touch it, it's perfectly smooth, and it's quite astonishing. I could have realized that, but this must have been a masterpiece of sculpture. On this side, where like, of course, like where the sculpture has now been defaced, you can see here there are some like little circles, or probably like other decoration or some numerals here. Again, that just tells you like the quality of the carving itself. There must have been like really, really fine carvings before they were destroyed.
So here we are at the top of the mountain. This is the principal temple of the sun. There we have Marco just investigating what looks like Intihuatana from Machu Picchu, or the hitching post of the sun. It's just like what we find at the very peak of Machu Picchu, like we do here at this site. So it just seems like it's almost like there's Peruvian influence at this site. So has this got an astronomical thing going on with it? Just like the one at Machu Picchu in ancient Peru. So we're at the top of the mountain here in the principal temple of the sun, and there's a couple of carvings of Tlaloc. First we have this one, which is more deep set, carved in the edge of this rock. Then we have this one behind it, at the top part of this rock. And interestingly, just behind it is Tlaloc Mountain. And so it's almost like, you can line them up, it's almost like they're aligned to the mountain, as though this was one of the principal alignments. We'll check with the compass exactly what that is. But let's have a closer look at this. That is absolutely amazing. Look at this. So we have a perfect description of Tlaloc, much like the Teotihuacan style Tlaloc we find on the pyramid of Quetzalcoatl. And so this could be the same kind of era. That would then suggest this whole site is Tlaloc era, therefore the time of Teotihuacan, circa 2,000 or at least 2,000 years old. So you can see all three Tlalocs, the two carvings and the Tlaloc mountain in the background there. It's also aligned south-southeast, 150 degrees. And so that could be winter solstice sunrise alignment perhaps. Not sure, we'll have to check that, but it's 150 degrees south-southeast. And so you've got this Tlaloc carving in the Teotihuacan style, which suggests this whole site is a Teotihuacan era or earlier site, with the mountain in the background where there's a pyramid, there's a big causeway, all related again to the Teotihuacan era. And this is also where the Tlaloc statue, supposedly the stone, came from. So again, is that really Aztec, or is that linked with Teotihuacan? So Marco's just pointed out that behind, if you view it from this hitching point of the sun here, up on the top of the mountain, that far mountain in the distance is the mountain behind Teotihuacan, Cerro Gordo. So this is really interesting. So you have an alignment from the temples and the Teotihuacan era carvings and everything up there linked with this site. So is this actual so-called hitching post of the sun actually aligned to that? Is it marking that? And on the other side, behind the carving of Tlaloc, we have the Tlaloc mountain. So it's just like at Machu Picchu, where you have all these different stones carved and placed to match what's in the distance. So you're marking this arena, this whole cosmos onto the land here. And this is a key point of that particular system. So I just want to say thanks to Marco for pointing out the importance of this site. It's got the vibe of Machu Picchu. It's very odd. It just reminds me the way you have to walk around it, the way you have to get to the top, the way it's a ceremonial space, I believe. This whole area is very, very important, well worth a visit. So thanks for watching. See you next time, Megalithomaniacs.